Hello, everyone. Welcome to Late Night with Chef. Truffle Boy and Doug reporting for duty, and tonight we have an amazing guest chef from the Mississippi. Doug, introduce our guest chef of the evening, please.
With pleasure. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys again. As Vlad said, another week, another amazing guest chef. Tonight we have Chef Jeff Thornsberry coming to us out of Mississippi. I have personally worked with Chef Jeff when we were both killing it over in St. Pete Beach, Florida. We're happy to have you on tonight, Chef. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm super excited to be on and super excited to be a part of the show. I know it's been going on for a while now, so.
Yeah, I know we've you were there like kind of in the beginning of like the first ideas of it. I know I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And yeah, we're slowly growing. I think we're almost to 750 followers, which is awesome. I think this is episode number 40, 39 or 40.
And I remember from the conception standing in a prep kitchen and
Yeah.
hearing about you guys getting this started.
Yeah, I think we were probably on like it must have been like the first or second episode, and I think we were at like 50 followers, and I was like, hey chef, I started this podcast, come check us out. So it's definitely been quite a journey. It has been awesome to have Vlad and all the other guest chefs kind of tuning in, but we're here now speaking with you. So can you give us a little bit of your background, your story, what kind of brought you to this culinary game?
Yeah, without a doubt. So, I grew up in a culture where everything that we do in kitchens was just kind of what I grew up with. I grew up in a horse farm outside of Charleston, South Carolina, and I lived on that until I was, about my mid-teens. And so I got lucky that just the kind of way that we did things is kind of the ways that everything's moving back to now in restaurants. We had a garden that was like an acre big, and that's what we ate on. And we raised horses and we did all that. So I got that work ethic young. Moving into the city, Charleston was a great place to grow up. I was there. I started culinary school a little bit after Johnson Wales decided to leave and move to North Carolina, but a lot of the teachers stayed and went to the culinary school I ended up attending. So I had this great education that kind of came out of nowhere, of staying at this little tech school that blew up and, just
Nice.
started running the game in Charleston. And we had all these heavy hitters down there cooking this food that was amazing. And those were the adjunct teachers that would come in and they would teach these classes. So we'd have our culinary teacher on one side, and then the other classroom was taught by this adjunct teacher that owned restaurants in downtown. So they were living it. It wasn't just something that it was this guy that had been there and had done it. It was somebody that was doing it currently. So we got a lot of opportunities with interning and with just staging and be able to get into kitchens that you wouldn't normally be able to get in. So we had huge opportunity with talking to these guys on a daily basis.
Yeah, that real world experience is so important in culinary school. I know Vlad can probably attest, but we had, culinary teachers who you could tell had been in the game and knew what was going on. And then we also had culinary teachers who had been so far removed from the game for, 15, 20 years that they're given these, what they think is still current real life lessons. And it's like, that's not how it works anymore.
Right, they're
No.
making, knives now, completely different category. And then you
Yeah.
have that chef who is like naming all the heavy hitters in downtown, and he's like, yeah, me and him owned a restaurant when we were 21 there. You're like, damn, I'm 18 still in culinary school, I haven't done anything. And you really listen to them, and you look out for that experience that they have.
Yeah, 1,000%. I am curious to kind of what was the vibe in, South Carolina, Charleston area while you're going to school. Was, the culinary scene kind of booming at that time, or was it still?
Well, it was huge. It was huge. We had a lot of big up and comers that were like just starting to make that peak. And right whenever the rock star chef thing was starting to come around, one of the guys, I worked for him, but man, I was so young, I didn't appreciate everything. But Sean Brock, I was with them over at McCrady's and for a little bit, and then transferred over to Husk and was a part of this movement that I just completely underappreciated at the time. And so for him to be coming up and he's like in his heyday and he's doing this thing that's like revolutionizing the nation and getting all this recognition. And it was just, where we went and clocked in every day.
Right, exactly. You're like, oh, it's just work.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
like looking back on it and looking how much like you picked up and we learned being in those kitchens, and I worked for a chef there. The biggest restaurant group I worked for there was called Maverick Southern Kitchens at the time. They got bought out a couple of years ago by a group called the Halls Group. But Chef Frank Lee, he's like the godfather of low country cuisine. Was like my first executive chef I ever had, and like that guy worked under Bocuse. And later on down the line, when I was working for Wolfgang Puck, Jerome Bocuse has a restaurant in Orlando and came and ate at our restaurant. And my old executive chef comes in and sits down with Jerome like they're all best friends. And I was like, holy shit. I worked with this dude when I was 16 years old, and he just sat down for dinner with Jerome. And it was super cool to go sit down and shoot the shit with them and get to experience. And for one of my first chefs ever to kind of see where I had made it and that he was seeing me on the other part of the country. So
Yeah, I mean, what a rewarding experience, probably for you, but also for him. I mean, that's kind of like the dream of, that next upper echelon of chef is to kind of breed really good chefs. We've talked about that quite a bit on the pod, but it seems that there's this sort of lack sometimes in our industry of chefs who want to breed other good chefs. And it's
yeah.
super important, I think, for the, or just our industry overall to keep moving forward. We have to pass along all this knowledge.
Well, I mean, once you hit a certain point, I mean, I firmly believe that you hit the role of mentor, and to be teaching people and getting them to move on and move up becomes more important almost than anything else. They're putting their careers in your hand, and just being there for them every day, hands on, side by side, and helping them reach that next level is paramount.
So
Yeah.
with having all these amazing mentors, I'm kind of really interested, and I know me and Doug have worked in these kitchens, but what was the culture like at Husk? And was this at like its early stages, or this when it was already pretty known and they already had that kind of pedigree behind them as well?
Well, I mean, transferring over, I mean, they had such a following there in the Low Country for McCrady's and everything that Sean had done. I mean, he had killed it in Nashville at the Hermitage, and he came over to McCrady's and really changed the game and was pushing the boundaries of what could be done. And then to take the step back and go with, you know, rethinking everything that he was doing and looking for these heirloom grains and bringing things back and just taking everything to the roots was such an adventurous thing to do at the time, because everybody else was pushing the boundary and trying to do all this molecular stuff and just trying to be the next Ferran. And he was like, no, like that, we need to take steps back to move forward. And he just killed the game. But I would say, I mean, the environment in the kitchen was really, really rewarding. It was definitely intimidating and competitive. Everybody worked together, but there was, people always chomping at the bit to get to move up into that next opportunity. And, to get something like that on your resume, especially get a sous chef position or something like that where you've made a difference, can really, really set you forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a dog eat dog world, probably in, the early stages of Sean Brock's career. Do you feel that, I know there's a lot of talk, about if that, angry chef sort of, provides something for the kitchen. And I think that there's a happy medium there. Do you kind of feel the same way that, that intensity that you felt in those early days at Husk has kind of shaped you for the better?
I mean, personally, me, maybe, but I don't think that's the direction that things are going nowadays. I'm going to tell you the truth, man. My first kitchen I ran, I was a bit of a tyrant because that's the way that I grew up, and it was so strict, and there was no room for leniency, and the demand of these 17, 18-hour days, and yada yada yada. And I don't see the thriving of success in that anymore in the day and age. People are looking for quality of life mixed with the success of their career, and we're trying to figure out ways to slip that into the culinary world now. And that's a big fundamental of what my new restaurant group is based upon. That we remind ourselves on a daily basis that if it's not fun, we're not going to do it. Like, we got into this because it was fun. If we're making it where it's not fun, we're not going to do it anymore, because that defeats our core value.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find that balance in there, because you were very, very strict on standards, but you have to understand that people are people, they have emotions, and how can we learn to be that 60 different managers at one time when you're walking around the floor. and be who everybody needs you to be. Some people need to be pushed a little bit more. Some people need to be nurtured. Some people you need to walk them through it a couple of times. You have to be that. And then every 6 steps, you're a different manager and just checking on people. And it can be taxing, but it's definitely rewarding at the end of the day whenever everybody leaves and they're still happy and they're proud of their work.
I agree 100%. What were you gonna say, Bud?
Yeah, no, I have so much to say to that. Like, I love the way you put that, because I look at it like, as you're describing that, I just look at it like from a business standpoint, that is so expensive to be a happy kitchen, right? To build that culture. But once it's made, it kind of, it keeps itself going, right? Once that culture kind of evolves, every newcomer, any stage, anybody that's, coming for an interview is getting that cultured into them right away. Like, hey, these are the standards. But like when you're opening a new kitchen, you need to set those standards. You need to find those balances. You need to, what's the no-nos, what's the okays, how lenient is lenient, if Vlad's late 2 weeks in a row, and we wrote
And why is Vlad late? Yes.
exactly, it's such a hard thing, and that's because we're dealing with people, right? We're dealing with people, and then we're dealing, with, usually in that income bracket, it's a lot of hardships that come with that, I feel like.
Without a doubt. It's no stranger to the fact that people in this background often come from a rough past, or there's a reason that they got into the industry, and not all of it's positive. Maybe it's something that they kind of fell into because it's all they had. So it's, trying to constantly take all that stuff into consideration and be successful at the same time, and be this bright and shiny gem in the eye of every customer that walks through your door, while you're, holding everything together with duct tape and emotions in the back.
I often call us the band of misfits. There's always some sort of similarity that kind of runs through, but there's that missing piece that is different for everybody, but we all kind of find it in the kitchen. And it's when that comes together, when that symbiotic relationship happens and that culture is built, you could definitely feel it. It's definitely infectious. So back to a little bit about your story. So you're in Charleston, you're young, you said somewhere around like 19, 20-ish?
Yeah, so I ended up leaving. I ended up dropping out of culinary school. I had completely finished all my culinary classes. I had some electives left to do, and a couple gen ed classes. And
oh yeah, man, same story over here. I had like a gym class and a history class left.
Yeah. And so my older brother was in the United States Air Force, and he was stationed over in Sevilla in Spain. And he gave me a call one day and was like, "Hey man, I'm only here for one more year. After that, I'm moving back to the States." And with that notice, I bought a fucking plane ticket and went on my way. Got to go over to Spain, and I had a free place to stay, and I could go and venture out. And I was really, really fortunate, because man, he would let me go out, and I would work and work and work and spend all my money. And then whenever I ran out of money, I would give him a call, and he'd buy me a plane ticket and send me enough money to eat 2 meals on the way, pick me up at the train station. And I'd start this vicious cycle over again, working some money up. And then sometimes I would make it, a 2-hour train ride. Sometimes I'd make it a 10-hour train ride. Depends on how committed I have been to getting in those kitchens and getting that money back. So, but I had a blast doing that over there.
Yeah, and so a lot of chefs, myself and Vlad included, and we have talked to some international chefs, but we kind of are starting to find this very similar kitchen lifestyle, so to speak, whether it was in Switzerland, whether it was in Sweden, whether it was in Germany, whether it was in the USA. Was there any really big sort of culture shocks going from a Sean Brock kitchen to a kitchen in Sevilla?
Oh man, yeah. Well, one thing is that their culture was already way more relaxed. I always joke around that like it was easier to get a beer in the morning than a coffee. Like coffee shops were like 10 a.m. earliest. And so like being American and come in and that early start and rush was not it. And then, you get used to getting into work as a line cook, and you going in at 6 p.m. because your dinner rush isn't until 9:30. and your last table sitting down a little before 1 a.m. and that's just normal. I mean, that's not even late night. And so it's
Wow.
a major culture shock there. And but I mean, just over there, everywhere that I visited over in Europe, they care so much about food, and it's such a big part of their culture that like the average person, I felt like, knew more about food than I did. I mean, especially about Spanish food, coming over from being a little hick, coming from Charleston, South Carolina, and going over to Spain, knowing no Spanish. And, just every day it was like, no big deal. It's cool. I'm going to go to the bakery. I'm going to get some bread. I'm going to go to the butcher. I'm going to get a piece of beef. I'm going to get some fresh eggs. We're going to stop by at the farmer's market on the way home. We're going to pick up some vegetables. Like, dude, how did you fit that in your day every day? And that was just normal for them. And it was they had such a passion for it. It was just amazing to kind of get into that and, you know,
Yeah.
see the major difference between, all right, let's go to the grocery store. I don't want to do this again this week. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't that by any means. Like they cared about what they were eating, and their whole lives as a family centered around that every day.
Yeah. There was no like once a week Trader Joe's run.
And
So I'm interested, I get it, you were cooking eggs and stuff and vegetables like that, but what were those dishes that like still bring back those like memories of doing all that, experiencing all that you were cooking, in your, quarters, so to speak?
So the most memorable thing I ate the entire time I lived in Spain was at this restaurant called the Parador. It was next to a cliff in a town called Ronda, and it's like the city's built on the top of two mountains, like the old side and the new side or whatever. This giant stone bridge in between, and like the restaurant sits right there in the valley. And I went and ate there, and I sat down and we did their lunch tasting menu, which was like this 6-course thing. It was nothing crazy, but the first thing they give you, and it wasn't even listed on the menu, was this oxtail consomme. And like, we don't do that sort of thing anymore in the States. Like, I had done it twice in culinary school and was like, all right, cool, another thing I'm never going to use. And I sit down and they give me this like almost coffee cup of broth, and I tasted it and I was like, oh fuck, man, I can't cook. like I don't know what cooking is if like this water is like one of the best things I've ever eaten before. And
Yeah.
I ended up getting to go back and stage there for like 2 weeks, and it was like life changing. Just like everybody like knew their shit in that kitchen, and it was every day. Everybody was there early. They were set up, like they used no mise en place from the day before, and it was just this constant work. And everybody knew what they were doing. It was a machine. Like there was like hardly any speaking at all. Like the chef would walk around and it was just this well-oiled machine. And it was like the only reason I went back is because of this broth that I had sipped for lunch one day. Then I went on a random trip with a buddy who happened to be going hiking, and I was like, all right, cool, let's go hike. We sat down for this lunch and just fucking.
Yeah.
But if you had to choose like consomme or demi-glace, like which are you leaning towards?
Me today, demi. I think I enjoy the process more.
I just feel like you get so much more reward by making, a demi than a consomme. Consomme, I guess it's more on, like your egg white wrap, but I always feel like every time I eat a consomme, I'm like, I want more, flavor. And then, but like that's the point of a consomme, right? It's being that light, aromatic, brothy, beautiful, clear.
I think it's like how much flavor can you pack into something with that perfect clarification? Like how far can you blow somebody away with, just pure technique? Because I mean, a consomme is watching temperature, it's controlling cooking, from the moment. I mean, it's controlling the color on the vegetables, it's controlling the heat on the bottom of the pan, how many bubbles are you getting at the top, and then you start your wrap. I mean, cooling it down properly, getting everything strained out, doing your wrap. I think there's an incredible amount of technique that goes into making it proper, and then to do it really well and to get the flavor into it. I say it's something I haven't done in probably 15 years. So
Yeah. Hashtag bring consomme back, everybody. So you're over in Sevilla, you're kind of doing your thing over there, going to all these different kitchens and, learning a ton. So after a year, you come back and, what's the thought process? Are you still really hungry for more culinary? Or are you kind of like looking at other things?
Oh man, I was super hungry because I was excited to like not only the things that I had learned about food, but just like I was inspired. Like I was like, dude, I care so much more than everybody else like that I cooked with. I was like, they didn't get to experience what I got. So like I came back in like, swagging my shoulders, walking through. And I actually went back to the same restaurant I was at. Um, whenever I had left, I had let him know like, hey, I'm going to be going on a hiatus. I'm not really sure how long I'm going to be gone. And he was like, all right, well, give me a call when you get back and we'll see what we've got for you. So I ended up going back, jumping right back on the line. And after about 2 months, I was about to go back to culinary school and finish. They offered me a promotion and I went to be their private dining chef to kind of run my own little kitchen. It wasn't much. We did a lot of like 30 top banquets, and it was like, hey, run this kitchen, help us with mise en place whenever you're not doing events, run our stocks, do our pastry work, stuff like that. And it was an awesome little gig to get into management because I would get to pick one or two cooks to work with me on events. I got to do a lot of work by myself and everything like that. But the stipulation was, they said we require 100% availability. So them working around my school schedule was never going to happen. So
Mm.
I didn't think twice. I mean, I took the job and never went back to culinary school.
Yeah.
I was there for, a total, I think, quite a few years actually. That was whenever I worked for Frank Lee, and he just, it was a great opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, that's so at this point you're around 23, 24,
22 at this point.
and you've already worked for Sean Brock. You've had this, sabbatical over in Sevilla, and now you're kind of back running your own show.
Honing in the skills,
Yeah,
getting
exactly.
look, got his own little laboratory. I mean,
But so I ended up getting to a point where it was like all too much all the time. I think everybody hits that point at some point. And I started to get a little worried, like going out every night. And, it wasn't a question of like, are we going out? It was where we were going out. And I had another brother. I have two brothers. The other one, he was living down in Tampa Bay and had been trying to get me to move down for quite some time. And he came to visit, and I don't know what it was that snapped, but I was like, all right, it's time to leave. I need to get out of here. And so I packed up all my stuff again and made a move down to St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay area, and landed down there, right young 22-year-old.
Yeah, I know after I'm living here for a year now that sometimes the kitchen life here can be very eerily similar. Chicago was the same way. It was definitely not a question of if, it was just where, and was it, only one spot that night, or are we going to, three or four different spots?
that's
Yeah.
that comfort zone, right? You get comfortable and you have too much time, right? When you figured out how to knock your prep list out, when you figured out how to have a flawless night, when you got all your orders in, you did everything, then you're like, oh, I got 3 hours to kill, and then I can sacrifice my mornings, and then that loop starts. But I think every chef goes through that, and the farther you climb up management, the farther you have to kind of step back from that life as well.
Oh, without a doubt. But so I got down to Tampa Bay, and I immediately started looking for a job. I didn't know anything about the food scene, and I had got a place to live, and I was like, man, I need a job. So I went to work for the first time ever for a corporate company, and man, it wasn't for me. Like I was used to something different, and this was like, it was like going to jail every day. It was like being groomed, and like the best thing that came out of it is I ended up meeting my wife there. She quote unquote trained me on my station my first 2 days at that job, and it was the only job in my life I've ever walked out on. It was like just under 2 weeks, and I was like, I already hate cooking, and so I ended up leaving, and
Yeah.
I
You're
became.
like, thanks for the training, but I'm out of here.
And
Yeah.
what was
I'll
it?
hit
What
you up
was it
later.
that did it? Was it the environment? Was it just like the lack of like, creativity? Yeah,
Yeah.
freedom.
It wasn't even that, and it was a busy restaurant, so like there was things to learn, like the volume and stuff like that, but like all the way to the top, I don't think there was a single person there that took pride in their job or like wanted to do it. They were just doing it. It was like they didn't have another option, that they had to do it no matter what. and they nobody did it with enthusiasm or like they genuinely wanted to take care of people. And it was like sour. It was just complete opposite of Charleston as a whole, because there's that Southern hospitality, and like I said, it was a fight. Everybody wanted to be the best, and they didn't have that. There was no competition. Like they didn't care if you tried. They just wanted you to flop some food on a plate and make sure it get in front of a customer.
Yeah, just make sure that your 6 pans are full and your third pans have enough meats, and however you get there is however you get there.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But so I ended up immediately. I mean, it took like 3 days before I started looking for another job, and I ended up getting very, very lucky. And like I said, remember I was just 22 when this happened, and I got my first executive position running a little French bistro that was under construction. So they weren't open, so I got to join on, and this was like my first opportunity to be a part of an like my own opening. I mean, I had to order my own equipment. I had to order my every spoon. I had to order every plate, and I was way out of my league. But I ended up calling this girl that would later become my wife, and was like, "Hey, you were pretty good. Like, I'm looking for people. I'm going to be running this kitchen and everything. Like, do you want to come and give it a shot with me?" And she's like, "Do you guys have health benefits or paid vacation or anything like that?" And I was like, "Nope." And she's like, "Nah."
Smart Katie.
But I ended up doing well there. We got a lot of accolades and being pretty good for my first little gig. And then I was there for almost 3 years, and I became a little bit more ambitious than the owner wanted to be, which was completely fine. He wanted to be this little neighborhood bistro, and we had completely accomplished that. And we were the favorite place in the town, and everybody was there. I mean, the people that went there 3 nights a week. But he was stuck on very hardcore classic French, and he didn't.
If it ain't broke, don't change it.
Yeah, and he was completely cool with that, which was fine. It's his company at the end of the day, and I was super proud of what we had accomplished. But we decided to part ways, and so we did. And then I actually went on, and me and my girlfriend opened our own company, and we had this food truck, and we were driving around, and we were doing these tasting menus at people's houses, and basically bringing a full service restaurant to people, instead of like having strangers come in your house to do this private dinner using your plates and all that stuff. We brought
Tell me more, please. This is like exactly what I want to do.
Oh, dude, it was great. It was super stressful because, like, imagine like going to work, prepping, breaking everything down, and then your kitchen needs to move 70 miles an hour down the interstate, and then you reset your kitchen back up. I mean, it was anxiety inducing.
But would you ever put yourself back in the food truck shoes, having worked in a food truck and owning a food truck and operating it as like a business?
No, and I think the major reason is just because of staffing. People hear what you're doing. It doesn't matter how successful you are. You could show every line cook the numbers. It doesn't mean anything to them. They hear food truck and they don't see stability. They're like, yeah, but how often are you going to call me off? How often are you actually going to need my help? Like, we were busy, and it was just hard to get people to commit to it because they didn't think it was. As many times as you called them and reassured them, this is your schedule. Like, you're working. Like,
Right.
everybody seemed to flake on it, and I think that was the most stressful thing, just getting people to believe in this little dream that you have, this small business. And
so brick and mortar definitely feel like solidifies that a little bit better in terms of like the staffing and then the whole scenario around it.
I think so, because it gives people this homey feeling of somewhere to go, as opposed to being like, all right, well, today, why don't you meet me at this church and I'll pick you up, or, meet me at my house and then we'll leave from there. Or, it just doesn't give them a sense of security.
Right.
Not
Yeah,
everybody's cut out for that,
Yeah.
the flexibility that as a chef, you have to be flexible, right? You meet me there, we're okay, great. But as, somebody who's coming in there for, the 40 hours, learn a little bit, some advance a little bit, it's very hard. I love that you brought that perspective, because I think as Doug was getting to his point.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, we kind of talked about it, that people in that position kind of come with different economic hardships sometimes, being of that, income bracket, as we put it. And so that stability and that need for that 40 hours a week, it's not coming from like a selfish need. There's probably, maybe they got kids, maybe they got a family, there's something that they have to support, even supporting themselves. Seeking out that stability is probably something that they were, like you said, kind of nervous about. And I've never really thought about it in that mentality before you brought that up.
Yeah, without a doubt. But it was very, very rewarding in like my first look into like, all right, man, like it's on you. Like your success is on you. It's not saying, oh well, if they would have done it like this, or if I would have had this, or if we would have been set up in this way, because it was just me. Like it was me. It was my job to make sure that everybody else had the tools that they needed to be successful. And that was,
Yeah,
a very intimidating thing to be doing at 20, what was it, 26 years old.
and your own marketing at that point as well, which is a completely different. I think chefs are finally starting to see that we kind of have marketing power within ourselves. But at that point, you're your own marketing team. That there's no brick and mortar for people to look up on Google.
Without a doubt.
You're you're you are that aspect on top of everything else. Being a chef and working in a kitchen already comes with.
Without a doubt. So that ended up running its course. We had a business partner and everything like that. We kind of hit a point and we were, I was stressed out beyond all means and everything like that. And we would rather do a brick and mortar sort of thing. That wasn't his jazz. So we decided to go another direction. And I ended up getting a job as a sous chef for Michael Mina. He had opened I want to say a food hall / high-end market in downtown St. Petersburg. And I joined on there. So they had this market downstairs, 5 food stations, just monstrosity, to like 22,000 square foot. And upstairs was this 270 seat high-end restaurant that basically mimicked everything we were doing downstairs, but with a little bit more finesse and, a sit-down feel. And so I joined on with that. And, they're giving me this spiel on, you're going to have to be doing this long before you get to move up, yada, yada, yada. And it was about 2 months after I'd been there and I was already running the restaurant by myself on the chef's days off and stuff like that. And, so I kind of jumped in headfirst with them, and I really, really enjoyed my time with that dining group. They do a lot for you, and they're very intense. They take an immense amount of pride in everything that they do. And I was super happy that while I ended up becoming the sous chef of the restaurant. They moved me up from the market, and then being up there, we made the switch from like an all-American kitchen to Italian cucina, and I really found kind of like my cornerstone. Like something made sense, something clicked whenever I started cooking this food and getting involved in it, and got this immense passion that like I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is what I'm supposed to be cooking.
And were you cooking like Spanish or what? What is that cuisine?
To Italian, like Calabrian, mostly like southern Italy, southern coastal Italy. We had, a fantastic pasta section. We had a bakery in house that we had a huge deck oven in that we ran pizzas in every day. And we just had this really, really beautiful mix of things we were able to do. But like this facility was like somebody that heard of all the cool things you can do with food, went through a catalog and picked every toy and just put it in the building with no true intention of how it was going to be used. So like we had these dehydrators that were the size of 2 convection ovens. We've got what was like 11 Rationale ovens in the building. We had
11 Rationale ovens.
We had 9 walk-in coolers. We had a dry age cooler. We had a butcher locker. We had our fish butcher room led into our beef butcher room. Like it was just like
I can see why you had a lot of fun with this restaurant group.
Yeah, it was cool.
Here's all the toys.
Yeah. So what ended up happening with that is, so I was there for a couple of years. I got promoted to their chef de cuisine, and I was running the restaurant full time. And I got a really cool customer that would come in, Wolfgang Puck. And so he does a lot of work with HSN, which is over in Clearwater. And he would come in and kind of eat every time he would come in town. He did that every month or two. And, I got to meet him cordially, and I always got to cook for him, because somebody high profile like that coming in, is an expectation that you touch that food, you taste it, you make sure that everything is as good as can be for somebody to be honored that they're coming in. And so
what an honor to cook for Wolfgang once, but to be able to cook for him multiple times is
right.
Definitely, yeah.
The fact that he kept coming in was huge. And so I had a couple conversations with him here and there. And then one time he asked me for my email address, and of course I gave it to him. And he shot me over this email and told me all about this new restaurant he was opening in Orlando, and that he would love for me to come and pick him up from his hotel, and for us to take a drive to Orlando and check this place out. And I was like, what? Like Wolfgang Puck wants me to fucking drive
Me?
to Orlando?
Wait, me?
And at first I thought it was a joke, and then his assistant, he doesn't pick up the phone and call anybody. Like, to get his number, like you got to be in the mix. And so his assistant called me and was like, hey, just so you know, we sent out this email. He was serious. Chef would really love for you to come and for you and him to go and check out this place. He really likes what you guys have been doing over there, and he sees a lot of what you're doing and what he wants to do in his new concept. And so I was like, yeah, without a doubt. Like,
Yeah, if Wolfgang asks you to come pick him up, and you're showing up.
so I literally drove my Forester to this dude's hotel, and like I go up to the front concierge desk. I don't know what I was supposed to say, and I'm like, I'm here to pick up Mr. Puck, and the woman's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, I'm pretty sure
It's a kidnapping, lady. Get him in the car.
I showed her my email and everything like that. She's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna sit out front. And 5 minutes later, of course, he comes down and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, that they're not allowed to tell anybody that I'm here. And I was like, all right, I was getting real worried that you guys were playing a horrible prank on me.
Yeah, email, haha, LOL.
So I'm this guy that I've cooked for like a handful of times, that is like world renowned. I'm now sitting in the car with, awkwardly, not knowing what to say, as we have this 2-hour drive from Tampa Bay to Orlando. And he made it painless. I mean, he was great. He really had a great conversation with me, and he answered every question I asked, and he was very genuine in asking me about my career. And about halfway through, I realized that he was really just digging and seeing what he could get out of me. And so we had a great little trip, and he wanted me to commit to a job right there on the spot and come on and work with him. And I was like, oh, I got a little bit to think about. I got a family. My daughter was like 4 months old at the time and everything like that. But end all be all, he ended up convincing me, and we ended up taking a big move and going for a restaurant in Orlando. And it was one of the craziest experiences I've ever had before in my life. And I thought that I had been in professional kitchens before, or intense in kitchens, or just people that were proud of who they were, until I was in that kitchen, and I was just blown away. I mean, everybody that I worked with that was on their corporate task force was just like, they had been with him for 20 years, 25 years, 15 years, 17 years. Like, they hadn't built a career, man. These people had built a life with him and on the values that he had created. And it was just jaw dropping to see everybody come in and just care so much and be so professional about everything that they did. It was staggering, and really, really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, talk about that infectious culture that we kind of hinted on a little bit earlier. It sounds like it was rampant within, Wolfgang's dining group, which, like you said, you kind of, when you feel that, when you see it, it elevates you as well. It makes you want to perform just as much.
Without a doubt. And we had a blast, and we worked really, really hard for a lot of hours. We went for a long time with no days off, but it was super rewarding, and the gratitude was there. It wasn't like it went unnoticed, and they understood what we were going through, and they were very gracious for what we did to try to be successful in such a hard market and such a tough time. And it was astounding. And I cherish every day that I had there. The chef that I was working with had been with Wolf for 21 years whenever we started, and he was a savage, man. Like, I had never met somebody that was, one, his palate was ridiculous, and the way that he thought about food was almost the exact opposite of mine. So the dishes that we came up with together were so well balanced and so flavor forward, because like where I would reach for vinegar, he would reach for herbs, and where I would looking for a bitterness, he would be looking for a spice. And so whenever we started changing these notes in each other's dishes, we just found this melody that nobody else had around us, and that nobody was putting in that work like we were. And it was a time to be cherished, and something that I'm glad that I was older and that I realized what was going on at the time.
Right.
Was the style of the restaurant New American or more Asian?
No, I would say New American, but we had a heavy influence in Italian. That was, what my wheelhouse and what I had just come from. And then Mike was his name, was the chef I was working with. He had just been running Lupo, Wolf's Italian restaurant in Las Vegas. And so as much as we are bringing in these flavors, but you're getting these little introductions of other flavors from around the world, but this heavily Italian influenced menu. I mean, we had a pizza station in the dining room. We had a huge nod to a pasta section where we were doing, 600-700 covers on a weekend night, where we were still hand rolling ravioli and hand cutting pappardelle, and we were making tortellini and just doing the stuff that people are like, why are you wasting your time doing that? And we're like, it makes us happy. Like, who else is doing it? Who else is putting in this work? Like,
Yeah, I know. Obviously we've worked together, so many of these stories we have shared, but I know the one that sticks out in my mind is this chicken salad. And, the herbs, just the herbs alone, I think it was 2 quarts of chives,
yeah, man,
just the herb work alone.
that's the one thing about working for Wolf, is that so many people expect the classics. So you always have this really cool blend of like 50-50 of his classics and then whatever you want to make. And we at lunchtime we did run his chicken salad that he makes, but like every day, and we had to make it every single day. It was his standard that like there was no day old. Every day it was like I need to match, and like it was so gratifying. Like the day that you sold out of it, because you're like, oh, yeah, that hour of chopping herbs wasn't in vain.
Yeah, I can't even imagine having to throw like a 6 pan of that away at the end of the night. That would hurt. That would hurt. Well, so I think we're, just about, do you have a little bit more time with us, Chef? I know you're kind of in the middle.
Got a couple minutes I can spend.
Yeah. So you're doing this thing at Wolf, and then so you come back to the St. Pete area, and I know we worked together kind of right in the middle of COVID times in St. Pete. And so, you know, being a leader in the kitchen during COVID, what was that experience like for you? Was that, probably very challenging in some aspect?
Well, it was super, super challenging. And I think it was super challenging too, because where we worked together, whenever I went in there, I mean, it was at full steam. The first month I was there was the busiest month they've ever had in history. And I walked in on February 4th, and I'm talking about 4 days into a month that is their busiest month they've ever had. And so that was chaos. And then 31 days after I stepped foot in the door, everything shut down. COVID. So I had the busiest month they've ever done to not have everything at home. And so, I mean, it was complete culture shock. I mean, I had just given everything up on this beautiful career I had working for Wolfgang Puck, and made this move to take on this opportunity. And then a month into it, our food and beverage department's closed down. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. Like, it was crazy. And there's no jobs to go back to with anybody else, because everybody's experiencing the same thing.
Right. Talk about having to have that confidence as a chef, but you're definitely sort of questioning these decisions that you've made.
Oh, without a doubt. But it ended up being a really, really, we turned it into a positive as best as we could there. We took the opportunity to really revamp what we were doing. And we were able to take the core crew, and we brought back almost 100% of the people, and really gave everybody an opportunity to shine. And I hope you think so too, but we made some strides while we were there, and what we were able to accomplish, especially in the time of kind of despair for most other people. And we seemed like we were really, really getting to move forward with what we were doing.
Oh, 100%. I know, during that time, there were so many other restaurants that were lucky if they did, 15 to 20 covers, and we're still sitting around like an 80 cover average, which is low for, what we were used to, but so grateful to even have those 80 covers during, the early April, March, May timeframe. It was a blessing.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was super gratifying, and we were really able to take some misfits that were so sure that they were the best, and we were able to break that down, and have everybody take a step back and be like, okay, well, let's learn our fundamentals. And then we really created this team of people that had confidence in the way that they could cook, because we had that opportunity to work side by side and hand in hand with them and show them some technique, and we just made it fun again. And
Yeah.
people that thought they knew everything started to question stuff. And that's whenever our foods really started to get good, because they would go home and they would look things up and these ideas would come, and our dishes would evolve and we would start adding these new things, and maybe we should try it like this. And everybody really opened up once we decided that maybe we all got a little bit to learn.
Exactly. And I think, we kind of talked about it earlier, but just kind of bringing everything full circle, how Sean Brock has this idea of staying true to the basics and staying true to the flame and making sure that we're not getting too far away from the origin of what cooking truly is. I think that really played a part in us being able to produce at the level that we were and kind of showcase, like you said, the fundamentals, us knowing that we know how to cook, we know how to saute, we know how to grill, and just being able to bring that, elegant simplicity to the plate.
Without a doubt.
Well, Chef, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the pod. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I don't know if you guys heard it in the beginning, but Chef is in the middle of opening up a restaurant in Mississippi. So he is taking some time. It was your first training day today?
First training day today. That's right. So we took and we did a lot of cleaning. We filled out a lot of paperwork. I'm learning them a lot better with explaining how people should fill out their little tax brackets than I thought I was.
There you go. All that stuff that falls under the chef umbrella somehow, some way. And it's always ever evolving, our chef umbrellas.
Without a doubt. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a blast.
Yeah, you are very welcome. We appreciate you coming on. We wish you the best in Mississippi. We will have to come check you out. At some point, we're going to be doing a Late Night with Chef roadshow, going to all of our guest chefs. And I believe you are the first chef we have from Mississippi. So another state to sort of put a dot in.
Well, we just signed our lease on our second location. So we're open to number 1, and we should have number 2 open in about 70 days. So we're going back to back. So
there you go. Back to back.
Back to back. Man, it was a pleasure meeting you. Everything you stand for, everything you said was just incredible. And, we're going to be rooting here for you. Late Night with Chef's fam, showing you lots of love and, staying in touch with you as you're going through this amazing, super difficult, I can't even imagine how many nights you're not going to be sleeping or how many 3-hour nights you're going to be sleeping for the next couple of weeks and then doing it back to back. But we're rooting for you, and everything we heard has been amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that, Chef.
Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Yes, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we hope you all stay safe out there. Thank you for coming to another episode, and we will see you all next week.
Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.